Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm glad to take your phone calls and your emails. Ordinarily, we have a lot of fun at the expense of attorneys. I am not an attorney, and I love to give attorneys all kinds of grief. But we have to remember there have been at least a few attorneys who played really significant roles in our country. One of them, Caesar Rodney, an American lawyer. He was from St. John's Neck, and he lived between October 7th, 1728. He died on June 26, 1784, in Kent County, Delaware. Well, in the great state of Delaware, a young lady who would like to become the governor of that state, who is also an attorney, is Julianne Murray, who joins me now. Ms. Murray, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Lars. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for being open-minded about attorneys. We're not all bad.
I know you're not all bad. It's just that you do keep me busy as a talk show host, because anytime I think there's not enough crazy going on, there's usually an attorney who's willing to throw some crazy into the mix out there.
That is a very, very fair point. It's hilarious. But yes, I am actually running for governor of Delaware as a Republican, and there are several people running in the race, but I am the only attorney and I'm the only woman, so it's actually interesting because I also am the most outspoken so far, which is kind of interesting. Probably not surprising to you.
That's but it's kind of amazing to me that some of the people who run for office these days are amazingly not outspoken, and you would think they'd be out there saying, I want the job because I'll do it differently than everybody else has been doing it. Otherwise, what's the point of running?
Exactly. And basically what's happened here in Delaware, two different things. We've had law enforcement memorials that have been vandalized, and we had the Caesar Rodney statue taken down from Wilmington, just taken down in the middle of the day. And our governor said nothing about the Caesar Rodney statue coming down or about the vandalism of the law enforcement memorials. And all of this happened within like a 2-week period in early June.
Now, I want you to explain to my audience, before we go any further, who Caesar Rodney was, because we can say he was a member of the Second Continental Congress, but he was a tiebreaker, wasn't he? He was, and thanks for that. That you're right. A lot of people don't know. Caesar Rodney. There were actually delegates from each colony, and there were 3 delegates from Delaware. One voted for independence, one voted against independence, and he was the tiebreaker. And the story goes that he was sick. He rode overnight to get there to cast that vote, but because they wanted the colony, it needed to be unanimous. He is arguably the vote that was cast that made it so that we got independence. He is absolutely a founding father and part of American history. And what's happened now is people have, the reason that the statue was taken down is somewhere they're saying that he owned slaves, so therefore he is no longer worthy of having that statue. And that whole movement is just sad to me. I think that removing statues doesn't erase history, and we really don't want to erase history. It's that you can't look at things through this very small lens. I think it's a really, really sad movement. Similarly, they took away a Christopher Columbus memorial, and it's just because it's crazy. The lunatics, Well, and look, there are 2 things. First of all, did we mention the other piece of his bio is he was president of Delaware? I didn't know that Delaware had a president back in the day.
We did not mention that. And yes, so it's for all intents and purposes, governor. It's at the time, but yeah, so he is a significant part of Delaware history. He's a significant part of American history. And that is important to remember. And I think that there is just this, I keep calling it a movement. I'm not quite sure. I think that's the right word, but to erase this and take it away. And I've actually talked to people on the campaign trail about this, and they said, well, statues are because we need to, it's revering the person. I said, well, it's remembering the person, it's honoring them, but it's okay to honor people, and don't just pick this one fact that is kind of fitting something right now that you don't, that doesn't fit your story. And I think that's the problem.
Well, let me ask you about this, because this whole trend to say we're going to look back a couple of hundred years to Caesar Rodney's time and say that by the standards of today, what he did was not acceptable. And I've told people, I said, these days, you could look back 10 years and say the things that were done by a certain person, one person or another, are not acceptable by today's standards. And since standards seem to change faster and faster all the time, almost anybody who served the country more than 30 or 40 years ago would have been hugely, out of step with the rest of society today. But why is there such a push to say let's erase anyone who, by the standards of today, was unacceptable?
Well, and it's a very fair question, and the thing that bothers me about it is I actually do not think that the majority of Americans, or in this case, when talking about Delawareans, are on board with it. We have a very small faction of people that are saying you do not fit what we like, and so therefore you must be erased. And so this very small minority is driving the dialogue. And it is and there's two different things. I mean, there's the kind of we have to erase history, and then there's also the let's do this in a violent mob. And and both of those are just incredibly dangerous, and and doesn't serve a purpose. I mean, unless the purpose is we want to be an angry mob, which they're doing. But I think that your point about looking back at something and saying this doesn't fit what we are now, so therefore we need to get rid of it, is a problem. Now, slavery, I mean, there's a whole argument about slavery for in terms of that it's many people call it the original sin of America. I understand that, but this is actually way beyond slavery. When we have George Washington and being vandalized and statues. I mean, a Frederick Douglass statue was vandalized. I mean, that's how you know that this really isn't about a particular issue anymore. This is really just about destruction and trying to reinvent history or make it something that you want it to be now. And I personally think that it's about control. It's trying to drive a particular dialogue and get people on board with it, when I think that the average person actually is not on board with it.
I couldn't agree with you more. Hey, Ms. Murray, before we run out of time, I want people to help you out with your campaign for governor of Delaware. Where can they find you on the web?
The website is murrayfordelaware.com, MURRAY for Delaware.com. We have a Facebook page too, Murray for Delaware. And I need the support and appreciate the support. And it is I am by far the most outspoken in this. Our governor's not saying anything. None of the other candidates are saying anything. And it's just, to me, it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more. Julianne Murray, who is running for governor of Delaware, which used to have a president back. Maybe we could give Joe Biden that job again. You got the Lars Larson Show.